Hello and welcome back to our podcast where we discuss topics related with Islamic history and civilization. For today's episode, we will discuss Tawhid as the essence of Islamic civilizations, focusing on the methodological dimension which is rationalism and tolerance.
I'm sure everyone have heard rationalism. So rationalism means, it is the practice or principle of basing opinions and actions on reason and knowledge rather than on religious belief or emotional response. And according to the methodological principle in the essence of Islamic civilization, rationalism is the constitutive of the essence of Islamic civilization, in which it comprises of 3 rules or laws. First, is the rejection of all that does not correspond with reality. Second, is the denial of the ultimate contradiction. And lastly, is the openness to new or contrary evidence. For the first rule, which is the rejection of all that does not correspond with reality, it means that we must protect the Muslims against any opinion that is making any kind of untested and unconfirmed claim to knowledge. And as we all know, Muslims is definable as the person who will claims nothing but the truth. This is in line with the Quran in chapter 2, verse 42, which explains that truth and falsehood are not permissible to be mixed together. Therefore we must reject all kind of falsehood and accept the truth. The second rule under rationalism is the denial of the ultimate contradiction. Here it explains that Muslims must be protected against any simple contradiction on one side and paradox on the other. We need to understand that rationalism does not mean that the priority of reason over revelation, but it is the rejection of any ultimate contradiction between Islam. Furthermore, rationalism studies contradictory theses over and over again, assuming that there must be an aspect that has escaped consideration, and that, if taken into account, would expose the contradictory relation. It is assured that all the intelligent Muslims is a rationalist as they insists of the 2 sources of truth, namely the revelation and reasons.
Lastly, the final rule under rationalism is the openness to new or contrary evidence. Muslims must be protected against an all form of literalism, fanaticism and stagnation causing conservatism.
Do you guys have heard about tolerant before? No? Okay, let me explain. So what is tolerant mean? Toleration is allowing, permitting or acceptance of an action, idea or object for which a person dislikes or disagrees with. Meanwhile, as in methodological principle, tolerance is the acceptance of the present until its falsehood has been established. In the view of methodological principle within the essence of Islamic civilization, tolerance is the conviction that God did not leave people without sending them a messenger from among themselves to teach them that there is no God but Allah and that they owe Him worship and service, to warn them against evil and its causes. So in addition, tolerance is relevant to ethics in general. Other than that, tolerance is known as the certainty that all men are endowed with the senses communes, which enables them to know the true religion in order to recognize God's will and commandments. Tolerant is also the conviction that the diversity of religious is due to history with all its affecting factors, its deserved conditions of space and time, its passions and vested interest. In a nutshell, tolerance requires Muslims to undertake a study of the history of religions with the view to discover within each the primeval endowment of God, which He sent all His apostles at all places and times to teach.
إنما ينهاكم الله عن الذين قاتلوكم في الدين وأخرجوكم من دياركم وظاهروا على إخراجكم أن تولوهم ومن يتولهم فأولئك هم الظالمون لكم دينكم ولي دين.
We also have to talk about the challenges or issues related to tolerance in this context. First is the misconception of the word tolerance itself. So someone on Quora shared his thought on this question. He said that, I think Turkey is the most tolerant Islamic country, and I guess Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the one who brought this revolution, After the disintegration of Ottoman Empire, Ataturk embarked upon a program of political, economic and cultural reforms and transformed the former Ottoman Empire into a modern and secular nation-state. So when we analyze this answer, we can get that it shows how anyone can misunderstood the word tolerant, especially by those who modernize or liberalize religion. What Ataturk did was not being tolerant. So when he was the president of Turkey, she made it compulsory to deliver adhan and to recite Quran in Turkish, not in Arabic. And he had forbidden the hijab despite his wife being a hijabi. There's also the issue on LGBTQ plus community. As we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told his servants to be fair to Muslims and non-Muslims, no matter who they are or where they come from, and to let them practice their faith. But issue arise, to what extent do we tolerate this? So yes, Islam emphasizes tolerance, but what is understood from the Islamic teachings is that Islam does not believe in absolute tolerance in every circumstance. So while Islam is tolerant of non-Muslims in religious matters, there are limits based on Islamic teachings. Back to the issue, the Quran and Hadith are very clear about the moral ruin of the people of Prophet Lut, and the Hadith in particular include many passages calling for harsh punishments of homosexual activity. Thus it is very clear that Islam forbids acting upon such activities. Let me conclude today's episode that perhaps what matters the most is mutual respect and understanding from both parties. But remember, as Muslims, our obedience and reliance shall remain in Allah alone.